It's Friday. MLS Decision Day is here. What is at stake tomorrow? European football returns after the long international break, and we take a look at the long and weird history of naming American soccer teams. This and much more here on Friday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and good morning. Welcome into Morning Kickaround, the program where we cover the world's favorite game from everyone's favorite country. Coming to you live from the upper Midwest where the leaves are changing colors by the day. I'm Robert Kerr, and to my east and to my left today, America's favorite Jason Davis.
That's your right, but the viewers left. All right, it's very confusing. We're here. Happy Friday, Robert. I'm ready. The leaves are changing here too, and I'm not in the upper Midwest, but it's still it is fall. And you know what that means? That means MLS Cup playoffs are coming. I know tomorrow is decision day, so I'm excited to talk about that today, amongst other topics.
I've got something a little more hard-hitting for you before we get into MLS Decision Day talk. Is your fall sweater game on point yet?
I am not a sweater guy, Robert. It's not my personal style. I've dabbled in sweaters over the years, and now I moved away. More of a crew guy now. You know, sweatshirt kind of, but nicer, like elevated sweatshirts is what I would call it. You know,
elevated sweatshirts. I love that terminology.
Sure.
What about puffy vest?
Not a puffy vest guy either. Not a vest guy in general. No vests for me over here. I don't know. I've curated my personal style, and it does not involve vests. It does not involve quarter zips, which are a hot topic on the internet these days. Like, are quarter zips good fashion or bad fashion? I think they are the go-to for nearly every guy when it starts to getting just a little chilly out there.
Yeah, it's an easy go-to. You're not getting dressed up, but it's really easy, and you're not slobby, but it's very, very
You know what a quarter zip does? And I haven't worked in an office in a very long time. You know, I'm blessed that way. Thank you to the soccer gods for letting me do this and wear this t-shirt instead of having to wear anything better when I do my job. But what a quarter zip does is cover up your wrinkled dress shirt that you're wearing underneath. That's what it does.
Absolutely nailed it there. Let's dig into the meat and potatoes, but first, we hit 200 subscribers earlier in the week, but let's keep on pushing that up. Morning Kickaround, like, subscribe, hit those buttons. If you want to reach out to us via the emails, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Send us question, comment, concern, or partnership opportunities.
Yes.
In fact, be a floating in here on that.
Yeah. I want people to understand. We want to communicate with you. Obviously, shout out to Connor and Brooks who are already in here dropping comments on us about fall fashions for men. I mean, we can only speak from our own personal perspective. We're not giving anybody else fashion advice. In fact, I'm not giving anybody fashion advice. You want to wear plaid lumberjack shirts, as Brooks suggests? Please go ahead and do that. It's not something I can pull off. Despite the coloring, I'm just not a fan of it. But if you want to do that, if you want to give us your thoughts on some of the later topics on this show, maybe your opinion about the MVP race in Major League Soccer, maybe some of the bad soccer club names, which we're going to be talking about later on in a new segment. I'm so excited to debut our brand new segment, Robert, which is coming up later. Hit us up on the socials, mkickaround. Hit us up via email, or just, obviously drop it in the comments here. And obviously, please subscribe to the show, as Robert has already said. We need to get those numbers up.
All right, let's pump those numbers up, and let's do so and kick it all off with Friday's Long Balls. Long balls for Friday, October 18th. Our first touch of the day. MLS Decision Day is Saturday. What's at stake, Jason?
What's at stake on MLS Decision Day? Well, why don't we look at the standings and try to get a little sense of this as we go into the matches tomorrow. So this is the Eastern Conference. Inter Miami top the table. Supporter Shield winners already locked and loaded on that front. Number 1 seed overall in the MLS Cup playoffs. But what are they playing for on the final day, Robert? They are playing to try to break the MLS points record held by the New England Revolution, who they face off against on Decision Day. Now, obviously, That was when the Revs were good under Bruce Arena, and now they're not good. So it's a different era. I'm sure they would love to keep Miami from taking the record off of them. However, you look down the table after that, there's not much. There's a little bit of seeding possibilities. Orlando and NYCFC could swap places depending on results. Charlotte could jump NYCFC possibly depending on things. They have DC United. DC United has something to play for. Red Bull's right there as well in terms of seeding. But DC United, Montreal, Philadelphia, and Atlanta are all still alive for the 8 and 9 spots in the Eastern Conference. If Philly beats Cincinnati, then they have to, right? In order to get into the playoffs, they have to beat Cincinnati. They'll get in, I think, because they'll have a goal difference tiebreaker if neither DC nor Montreal win, pick up a single point, win or draw on the day. You talk it out, it sounds complicated, but pretty much it means Philadelphia has to win. There's no guarantee they get in, but they have to win. DC United, Montreal with a draw would be in for sure. DC with Charlotte there, and Montreal with NYCFC. So, not easy challenges for them. But that's the Eastern Conference look right now, Robert. Actually, do we have the Eastern Conference schedule? I think we have that one as well. We can probably pull that up. I know that's skipping a bit. There it is. Montreal hosting NYCFC. Fire hosting Nashville. Neither one of those teams have anything to play for. DC and Charlotte. We already talked about that. DC with a draw or a win is in. Charlotte's already in. It's a matter of seeding for them. Miami for the points record. Red Bulls at home against Columbus. Columbus can't improve their play, so it's just a matter of, do you want to go into the playoffs with some momentum? I think the Red Bulls can improve their place depending on things elsewhere. Orlando City, Atlanta United playing for their lives if they want to make the playoffs, and as I mentioned, Philly and Cincinnati. So any thoughts on the Eastern Conference for you, Robert, as we look at this?
I think that I got to tip my hat. Something I rarely do, tip my hat to MLS scheduling.
By the way,
the Inter Miami versus the Revs.
I hate to interrupt you, and I keep doing this, and I know this is because I have European brain so much these days. Joseph is correct. It's wins, not goal difference that matters. But I think if we can go back, I know I'm putting a lot here. Can we go back to the Eastern Conference standings after what Joseph just corrected me on? Because what I want to see is, again, Philadelphia down there in 11th place. Now, we don't have their wins here. We just have points. So we would have to have the full list of wins and everything else in order to know exactly whether or not, so Philadelphia is a team that is much better than anybody else in the conference on goal difference. But in terms of their wins, that's what, again, ultimately matters for making the playoffs. They are on 9 wins right now. DC United is on 10. Montreal's on 10. So that's what I'm saying. So even though tiebreaker is wins, if Philly wins and DC and Montreal, one or both, loses, Philly will have the tiebreaker because they'll have the same number of wins and they'll be better in goal difference, which is the second tiebreaker, right? So let me make sure Joseph is on board with that too. Joseph confirmed with me. Thank you very much. I had it correct. I just didn't explain it correctly. Thank you to Joseph for that.
I was just about to give kudos to the MLS schedulers. I mean, over the years, MLS has had some pretty kooky scheduling, but I think they usually get this decision day right. One thing I did see there, Toronto already played all 34 of their games.
There's an odd number of teams, and there's 29 teams in the league, Robert. Somebody's got to be cooked and done and already in the clubhouse on the final day, which, Toronto, it looks, if you go, decision day, everything's to play for. Toronto's right there. Nope, they're done. They can't make the playoffs, despite where they sit in the table right now. They're below the line, but if they had a game, they might be able to get above it. They do not, and they are done. So, yeah, there you go.
Yes, but having the top 2 teams are points record-wise, historically, having Inter Miami clash on the final day to break the record of the team that holds the record, that's just iconic.
That's dumb luck. That's dumb luck, Robert. The schedule makers weren't like, you know what I think is going to happen? Inter Miami's going to be going for the points record, and New England's going to want to keep it from them because they hold that. That's completely luck for the MLS schedule makers.
Hey, there's the preparation and hard work leads you into getting lucky, Jason.
Okay, that's right. You're right. If you set yourself up for success, sometimes it feels like luck, but it's actually the hard work that you've done.
So,
That's such good dad things, right? That you said right there, Robert. That is good dadding right there. Good job.
hey, you got to have these things built in at this point. I mean, I'm about 10 years deep into the dad game. You got to have a couple things in your holster. Um, I do think that the bubble between 8 and 12 is interesting. There's 5 teams within 3 points of each other.
Yeah.
But with that tiebreaker, that maybe not as much. I mean, there's DC United, Montreal with 10 wins, but behind them, the Finnish Toronto has 11 wins, and then Philadelphia and Atlanta with the 10 wins. So that is a bit of a bottleneck there. Brooks brings up an interesting point that if the Fire win, they finish 13th for the third straight year, which maybe that's the last year that they do that now that the Greg Berhalter era is incoming. They can maybe hope to reach 12th, maybe.
And by the way, a note on the Fire, who are perennially disappointing. And please figure it out, Chicago. We'd like that town to matter when it comes to American soccer. I did see that Greg Berhalter had his first press conference as new head coach yesterday. Not coaching yet, but just introducing Greg Berhalter as Fire head coach. Joe Mansueto was there next to him. And apparently afterwards, Mansueto talked about the Fire searching for a location to build a soccer-specific stadium somewhere in Chicago.
So a third stadium.
They're just going to go like back into the fray and like, okay, we just need to be closer than Bridgeview. We just need to be closer to the loop than Bridgeview. Like that's the only concern here at this point.
Yeah, not suburban, not downtown, not Bridgeview. Where are they going to put it? Maybe they should just have a floating, maybe put it out on Lake Michigan.
No, there were a couple of specific places mentioned, and my Chicago geography is going to fail me, but it was Lincoln Yards, which I think there was originally a plan there to build a USL stadium, and then that all fell apart, but there might be a new approach to that location. So
Lincoln Yards is something they were talking about like between 5 and 10 years ago, and that's an area. That's a very interesting area that's just west of like Lincoln Park and is like used to be a big like scrapping facility, like scrap metal. Is just like a mountain of scrap metal there. And I think they're trying to turn it into like this new urban development, make it like a new city within the city. So that would be a pretty interesting location if they're able to revive that. That would be quite the undertaking though. So with this whole, going for the points record thing, got to say that Arena Revs team had a very different kind of schedule. That was back in the COVID bubble days. So I think there should be a significant asterisk on that 70.
That's fair. That's interesting. An asterisk like on Liverpool's Premier League title. Robert, you agree with that, right?
No, not at all, because they still played a balanced schedule. They didn't play in a bubble.
Okay, fair enough. Jason is pointing out that
while
the Crew cannot improve their place in the standings in the Eastern Conference, they can improve their overall standing across the combined table, which obviously would improve their chances of hosting an MLS Cup final should they get there. That's a good point as well from a Crew fan. Okay, so let's move on to Western. We haven't talked Western Conference at all yet. Let's do that. Let's dive into the Western Conference. Take a look at the standings out there in the West. The Galaxy atop the table on 64 points, 3 points up on LAFC, and that's really where some of this intrigue is. We'll go down in terms of seeding because the 9 teams to make the playoffs is already set in the West. Nobody below the line can get in on decision day, which is a bit of a bummer from a drama perspective for a neutral, Robert. But you have the Galaxy who have to go to Houston to play against the Dynamo. And the Dynamo are down there in 5th right now. What they want to do is maintain that 5th position because they can't catch RSL. But they don't want to go any lower than they are. That means they won't host. They won't have the home field advantage, right, in the playoffs. But they'll perhaps down the road when teams are eliminated, you want to be as high as possible. Meanwhile, LAFC has San Jose, who has absolutely nothing to play for. They will be last across all of Major League Soccer, no matter what happens on the final day of the season. Can they play spoiler for Steve Cherundolo and his side as they try to jump the Galaxy in the Western Conference for that top spot? There's a little bit there. I think it's obviously, and by the way, because it has been pointed out by Joseph that wins is the tiebreaker. If you go and look at the Western Conference standings, The Galaxy are 19. LAFC is on 18. Now, obviously, for LAFC to catch the Galaxy have to lose to Houston. LAFC has to beat San Jose. They would be on the same number of wins. However, the LAFC win would have to be enough to make up a 2-goal difference in terms of that goal difference right now, which is 20-18, as you can see.
Yeah, Brooks in the comments giving a shout out to Greg Vanny getting the Galaxy back into the upper echelon of the Western Conference. LAFC with that outside shot. Do you think that LAFC could possibly pip Galaxy to that top spot?
I think the Galaxy are going to find a way to get at least a point. We will see if Vanny tries to be a little cagey with his approach against Houston, who is good at home. And, again, Houston doesn't have, again, combined standings, all of that matters. As Jason pointed out with the Crew and their challenge, if you look at the combined table, if you think about, well, Dynamo want to hold off Colorado, who could catch them, Minnesota as well. There are things there for Houston to play for. I think pride is a major part of this. It's the last game of the regular season. But I think the Galaxy are going to find a way to get at least a point, which would stave off LAFC. LAFC is probably going to beat San Jose, who is just absolutely terrible. So it could end up being 65-64 out west. And that might matter. That might matter when we get down to a Western Conference final.
On the contrary, which team, was most disappointing? Connor said, which non-playoff team is most surprising? Comparing the 23 and the 2024 tables, you got to look at expansion side St. Louis City topping the tables last year.
Well, but this is a phenomenon, right? I know it was their expansion year last year, so it's a little different. But think about Austin FC, who was not a playoff team in year one, right? And tried to figure something, and then had a great year with Sebastian Giussi getting MVP love, and they were, they finished second in the Western Conference, and then the absolute drop off that they had the next year. And it was a lot of people would say, and this is that collision of like advanced analytics and some of the stats we're using and real life. And you go, well, they're outperforming all of their expected goal numbers. All of the analytics say they shouldn't be this good. They shouldn't be this high on the table. And yet there they are. And the next year, all of that catches up with them. They weren't creating good enough chances. They were lucky the year before. Things were going their way. And they finished second, and now you see where they are. They just fired Josh Wolf, and now we'll be looking for a new head coach. And St. Louis this year, the same thing. The massive drop-off, fire Bradley Carnell. And now they're going to try to figure out how to move into the next phase after everything looked so good for them. I think we all kind of knew it was a mirage, but this is MLS, and it does give us some of those surprises, particularly because of the format. The unbalanced schedule, which you've already mentioned, Robert, that's a thing that MLS doesn't have a balanced schedule. And, you make the playoffs, you make the playoffs. So that is a good shout. I would say that I'm not sure where St. Louis goes from here, but it's going to be fascinating to watch that. Who else is a disappointment in 2024?
I'd say Wooden Spoon winner San Jose Earthquakes sitting on just 21 points. They'll need at least a draw on decision day to equal Toronto's abysmal 2023 season.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad situation there in San Jose. I don't expect a lot from them. They've got an owner who has just moved his Major League Baseball team to a minor league baseball stadium in Sacramento, California. So what would you expect from his soccer team? Why would you expect better from his soccer team? I would say that
Sacramento unathletics.
Oh man, that's tough. I'm Sacramento born, Robert. I was born in Sacramento, California. I feel like I'm a pretty athletic guy, so I don't know if I like that phrasing, but I see what you're saying. I'm looking at the standings in the East. If you make the playoffs, I guess that's it's really hard to be too critical of a team that makes the playoffs. I would say that Orlando City. It's a good season. I think I was hoping for more from them this year. I think a lot of people, I might have even had them number one overall in the conference based on what they did last season under Oscar Pareja. Ooh. So that's a little bit of a disappointment to be right now in fourth, and they could potentially slip depending on results on the final day. You look down the table, obviously the season Philadelphia has had, that's not their standard, but they've aged to a point where it kind of makes sense that this is what they're that this is what they're facing, that they're kind of pushing against the issues of time and some of the other things that have happened for them. Nashville is a disappointment. Obviously, they made a coaching change this year as well. They had been a pretty good team and a playoff contender every year. I mean, the Revs, that I don't know. That is such a. And last year upended everything for them, but you thought maybe they'd be able to at least get competent, get at least to the mediocre level, and they're not that. They're not that. And in the Western Conference, so we can look at the Western Conference as well. Again, beside St. Louis City, I think Sporting, this the year. I think there are some fans out there in Kansas City who have finally gotten to that point where they feel like Peter Vermees has to go. It's not getting better. This has been a couple years now where they've become an also-ran in the Western Conference. FC Dallas is a disappointment. They fired their coach. I think that's fair to say. Outside of that, I mean, again, Minnesota first-year head coach makes the playoffs. Good for Eric Ramsey. Colorado, Chris Armas doing pretty good work. Been pointed out by Joseph in the chat that the Rapids sold Bombito and then haven't been great. And maybe they're not a real contender for MLS Cup, but they're there in the playoffs, and that's something to be noted.
One last note before we move on. There could be as much as a 54-point gap between first and last in Major League Soccer. Is the league becoming less balanced?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd have to think about that. I don't know what the biggest gap between first and last has ever been. That would kind of be important. Although MLS has changed so much over the years, it's kind of really hard to get a grasp. And comparing eras is definitely a thing. I don't know, if we can really do that sometimes, considering the number of teams has grown, right? It used to be, there were 8 teams, and then there were 12 teams, and then there were 16 and 18, 23, and now we're at 29. And sort of sort of naturally, it would figure that you would have more haves and more have-nots just in a bigger soccer league. There's not enough talent and enough balance to go around. And the league has obviously been a little bit more relaxed with the rules around spending and things that have given an opportunity for clubs to be. And I think that the league finding ways, certain teams finding ways to be attractive to players who would normally command big salaries but are probably taking pay cuts or lesser salaries to play here. And I'm thinking LAFC and I'm thinking Miami, obviously. That's stretched things out a bit.
Moving on to long ball number 2 for Friday, October 18th. Thomas Tuchel takes the England job.
Yeah.
Will he take the Three Lions a step farther and win a major trophy?
Well, so there is that, right? Just what will his success be with England? And we're coming off of a very successful period for England. As much as people hated the way Gareth Southgate's teams played, and look, when you are a team with that kind of talent, sort of recognized individual quality across the group, and you make a final, and then in that final, you seem incapable of responding to the moment, I understand some criticism. I mean, it's a thing out there that Southgate got scared or played scared or didn't go aggressive enough when England was on the verge of maybe winning that European title or making that World Cup final. And I think that's a fair criticism in that moment. But if you look at the body of work for Gareth Southgate, when's the last time England had a run like that? I mean, never, right? Never. Now, they won a World Cup in 1966, but they had never had this run of European Championship, a World Cup, European Championship, where they had done more than make a quarterfinal or something. And they were there. They were at the final stage and nearly did the job. And now they're bringing in a guy who is probably better tactically than Southgate. I don't think there's any argument about that, Robert. But this is a strange situation for any coach who's made his bones in the club side of the game. And we're watching it with Pochettino, the adjustment that he has to make to having a very short camp and a couple of games and then, a month off. So can Thomas Tuchel improve England? Sure he can. They still have to do the work of getting through tournaments. Sometimes that's about luck. If they are not as defensively sound under Tuchel, the way that they were under Southgate, because tournament football is often about defending more than it is about your attack, I don't know about. But I'm also fascinated by this thing that has happened, and this is culture war stuff more than anything else, where a lot of the English media and some of the English fans are like, no, we know Germans. We can't hire a German. What are you talking about, a German? It's very funny to me. Somebody called out a Telegraph columnist whose name I can't remember, because one week he was saying,
Daily Mail or something, probably.
It was not. It was the Telegraph. But if if I think it was, but if the FA had been able to sign Pep Guardiola to coach England, it would have been the biggest project they'd completed since renovating Wembley, right? Since rebuilding Wembley. Like, he put it on that scale. Like, oh, they'd, this would be massive. And then the next week, he, just like many other people in the English media, were saying, this is a travesty. This is turning your back on history. Why don't we have an English manager? And it's like, well, wait a second. Pep Guardiola, last time I checked, not English. Spaniard. So a Spaniard's okay, but a German is not, is basically what seems to be happening here.
Thomas Tuchel has a history of being a bit combustible and typically kind of like wears out his welcome after not too long of a time. Does he make it to World Cup 2026?
Yes, and I think part of that is because it's the skipping stone across the pond. He doesn't have to now he's going to engage with the media sometimes, and the English media around the England national team is extremely toxic, and there's
no winning unless you win the World Cup, and they'd still probably be like, he didn't score enough goals winning the World Cup.
Exactly, right? Well, if you win the World Cup, I do think you will be forgiven no matter what. But if you don't win the World Cup and you don't score enough goals, like if you make a World Cup final and you lose, then everything's terrible and you're terrible. And why the hell did you ever get this job in the first place and get out of here and all of that stuff? I think that, though, because it's not the same kind of thing where week to week, he's got to be talking to the media. Week to week, he's got to be in front of his players. Week to week, he's got to be kind of this dour figure that Thomas Tuchel can be. I don't think it's as big of a deal. In fact, it might even be made for him on that front. I think media-wise, he's going to be fine. It is just, again, that thing of, does he elevate this England team, this particular group of players? Because there's so much talent here, it feels like why wouldn't a better coach be able to take them to the promised land?
Yeah, is he able to keep that high standard of solidity and then just add that one level to get them above, or do they lose that rigidity and solidity, and they just go this direction? But
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because what's the mantra of this show? The world's favorite game, but we talk about it from America's favorite country, world's favorite country, United States.
Yeah.
From a United States men's national team standpoint, would you have rather had Tuchel or Pochettino?
Pochettino for sure, and that's a vibe thing more than anything else, right? Tuchel's done the thing that Pochettino couldn't with the Champions League. I think otherwise their resumes are not completely different. I don't think. I mean, is there anything that stands out to you that makes them decidedly different in terms of what they've accomplished in the game? They're obviously coming from very different cultures. I think it's not, and this is not an anti-German sentiment. This is a personality sentiment. And it seems as though, and the first couple of weeks here of Pochettino have reinforced this for me. Pochettino seems like a very open guy, right? He seems like he wants to communicate. He obviously wants to understand. He's giving all the deference necessary to make us feel like we're wanted by him, which matters. And I'm not sure Thomas Tuchel would have been that kind of figure with the U.S. men's national team, Robert.
He's not necessarily the warm and fuzzy guy that's willing to adapt to the situation.
Right. I don't think he would have gotten... So Mauricio Pochettino had those custom mate gourds made for people around U.S. soccer. Can you imagine Thomas Tuchel, like, I don't know, what's a beer stein or something? Like, just, do you think he would have done that? Like, I don't know if he would have done that.
No, I can't imagine that. He definitely doesn't have the warm and fuzzy, and I feel like Tuchel will be more likely to hang up the phone on like a club manager that wants his players sent home sooner or something like that. I don't know if he would have been as amicable as Pochettino, for better or worse.
Yeah, here's a good question from Joseph. If England wins the World Cup with a German manager, will they ever hire another Brit ever again? And, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if we can predict the future. It'd be interesting. I also think that this kind of ties into this question of the bigger picture of international football, right? So England's having a reaction to the national team hiring a German manager. There's some history there. Things happened. Things happened in the past. It's whatever.
Unpleasant arguments.
A couple of big arguments in the past. But I've seen people say international football, international soccer is meant to be country versus country. And you can't go grab players from somewhere else unless they go through the process of becoming eligible for you, right? So you either have to have citizens or they have to become citizens or whatever your standards are. Those things, you have to do that. And it's supposed to reflect your soccer culture, your soccer abilities. Why wouldn't we apply that same thinking to the coach of the national team? Why is the coach separate from this requirement that the team be a reflection of that individual country? And I've never even really thought about it, to be honest with you. It feels wrong to me to say, oh, you can only hire people from your country to be your coach. That feels wrong, but I don't know why I think that, other than it's kind of always been the case that teams will go out and hire somebody from somewhere else. Now, it's also worth pointing out, no one's ever won the World Cup with a foreign manager in charge. So, maybe there is something to that. And so is England responding to the idea of a German coaching their team? Or are there some people who are saying, and maybe they would have felt this way if it was Pep Guardiola as well, no, we should have an English manager because we're the England national team. And then, of course, as Americans, we've got an Argentine manager now. Should we have an American manager? I mean, I don't think there is one that gets people excited, and we just got done with one that everybody thought was pretty terrible by the end. So, I don't love that idea, but that's only because we haven't won anything. We haven't gotten to that place of being able to say we've achieved it. So we kind of feel like we need that extra bit of help.
It is wild that no foreign manager has won a World Cup when every other sport, other nationalities have been the coach of like every kind of Olympic team and hockey teams and all those other, and that really hasn't made the difference.
We won all those gold medals. I mean, we win gold medals in gymnastics all the time, but it's always like a Romanian coach or it's always like that. It's not, I mean, sometimes they're Americans, but yeah. You grab the expertise you can grab. And then again, of course, the thing about, I saw this opinion from an Englishman, right? England should have an English coach because international football should be a reflection of your individual country. That includes the manager. But as Americans, we are so accustomed to for people just coming here and deciding that they want to be American and they want to represent America on the international sporting stage that, people win gold medals for one country and then the next Olympics, they're running for America and they're winning gold medals for us. So it's totally normal for us.
Moving along, long ball number 3 here for Friday morning. The long international break is finally done. European club football returns this weekend. Who will suffer most from an international break hangover?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I have a sense of that or really thought about that too much. You look at the teams that had a bunch of players leave. We had a couple of players pick up injuries over the break. I have no idea. I don't know how to address this, so don't think we're avoiding it. But I have no idea what happened with Kylian Mbappe is going to affect him moving forward. I look at your eyes get really big.
I don't know. I have my 10-foot pole around here somewhere that I don't really want to pick up. But my initial thoughts at perusing the weekend schedule, a stumbling block for the big teams coming off the international break. Arsenal away at Bournemouth seems like a bit of a banana peel.
Does it?
In my
Does
opinion.
it? I have not read up. Do we have, as Americans are concerned in that game, would, if you're not an Arsenal fan, if you're not a Bournemouth fan, would be whether or not Tyler Adams is set to perhaps make the bench, be involved in some manner. And there have been some reports coming into the break that Tyler might be ready to do some things. Now, I'm still seeing him listed as doubtful in the places I go to check this stuff, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But that is interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, Arsenal, obviously, they're right there. They're a point back of Liverpool, tied with Manchester City. But I wouldn't say that they have the toughest challenge of the top 3. I think it's Liverpool that probably does, right, as they go up against Chelsea.
Yeah, this topic comes to mind because Liverpool, their only defeat of the season, came to I think Nottingham Forest went at home after the September window, and they will be taking on Chelsea. Definitely the marquee game of the Premier League calendar on Sunday midday. Liverpool-Chelsea, I really don't know what to expect because the performance was so different following the last international break. I was asked last night, who do you favor? A Chelsea fan asked me, and I really had no answer. It could be any result, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see that Marc Cucurella has a red card suspension. So does Fofana.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Becker picked up that injury before the international window, so you're working with a backup goalkeeper. Although I don't think is there really a concern at goalkeeper for Liverpool, despite the fact that Becker is your clear number one.
Kelleher has done a good job whenever he's been called in.
Yeah, and he was ill and wasn't able to play when Becker was initially injured, but I think he's back. So Kelleher's and played very well last year in Becker's stead when he had the opportunity. I think he's probably not long for Liverpool if he wants to start and they want to hold on to Becker. Although who knows what's going to happen there. But yeah, that's certainly an interesting element of the Premier League proceedings. Manchester City with Wolves, I wouldn't expect any real problems there for Manchester City, but it does look like, they do also have some players who are missing that could be a factor. Not even talking about Rodri, who you kind of have to put out of your mind because he's not coming back for the full season. What else do you got, Robert, in terms of what you're looking for?
The last one of note in the Premier League calendar, Manchester United hosting Brentford, just because they've had their struggles against Brentford in the past, coming off the international break, and it's been all the controversy with Eric Ten Hag and then the dismissal of Ferguson and all that. It seems to be there could be a firestorm brewing there.
Yeah, and a bigger problem. To add to the problems that Ten Hag already has. How many problems does he have? 10? More than 10? I don't know. Kabi Manu is going to be missing for a while, at least a month. I think they're talking about Manu with a muscle injury. So that's a midfield option that Ten Hag no longer has as he goes into the next phase and really coaching for his job. I mean, let's be frankly honest about this. The fact Eric Ten Hag is still holding on to his job is a big upset, a giant shock. Tuchel was in the picture, it sounded like, for Manchester United as a possibility. He's off the board. I mean, I know there are some other options out there, but, Ten Hag can't be too comfortable, and you've really got to win at home against Brentford if you want to keep that job.
Looking around the continent, Real Madrid visits Celta Vigo. Celta Vigo has provided some resistance in the past, and then Barcelona welcomes Sevilla. Never an easy game there. And then going to Italy, AC Pulisic take on Udinese, and Juve host Lazio.
Yeah, back into the league campaign for Christian Pulisic, who obviously great form coming into the international break. Played the one game against Panama. You hope that doesn't stop his momentum as he goes back into Italy. Definitely, I think a lot of people, fans of the national team, have seen that video of him playing. He's in a golf cart. He's just with some guy playing golf. I don't know if he knew he was being recorded. It felt a little uncomfortable, like he was being recorded without him knowing. But he just says, like, yeah, Milan's great. It's been great for me. Our stadium's amazing. You got to come out. Like, he clearly is feeling very, very good about his situation. Now, it's not as good for Milan as a team in sixth place on 11 points, 5 points back of Napoli in the early stages. So, they got to start making their push, or Fonseca might not be long for that job. We wondered if he was going to be fired before the break. Coming out of it, well, you better do some work here. And Udinese is a spot ahead of Milan in the table, so they've been pretty good this season so far.
If you want to throw it in the chat, what are you looking forward to watching most this weekend? We'll come to that at the end of the show. If you want to reach out, Kickaround on the X and the Twitter, and write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We'll take a breath and be back with today's hot topic. MLS MVP 2024, Lionel Messi or Cucho Hernandez or someone else entirely? Who do you think will take home the biggest individual prize of the MLS 2024 season?
Was that the third different way you've pronounced his first name.
You know
I
what's
think.
funny is because I always said Leo my whole life. I just said Leo, 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 and for some reason doing the show, I feel the need to go Lionel, and I've
I
botched
see.
it every time. So
Well, it is Lionel, but for whatever reason, he's also Leo, not Leo. I don't know why. I don't know how to because that's anyway. You're right. It's a complicated situation. It's Lionel Messi, but it's complicated. Now we got on the screen here Messi or Coach Hernandez, and I think most people would have Coach Hernandez in the the candidates,
driver's
of
seat.
course. Well, just to be in the mix, and maybe those are the two players that you put up against one another. Part of that is based on team performance, because neither one of those players leads the Golden Boot race as we go into decision day, Robert. And I think it's very unlikely anybody catches Christian Benteke to win the Golden Boot in Major League Soccer over him. And yet nobody is saying Christian Benteke is your MVP in 2024. Why is that?
Is that because DC United just been not a fun watch this year?
I mean, fun watch. Okay, I don't know that matters, but they're not an elite team. Everybody knows they're not an elite team, right? So that's probably what this is. The mix of factors always seems to be, is the team a good team, an elite team, a title contending team? Let's say it that way. Is your team a title contending team? Who's the best player on that title contending team? Do his numbers compare favorably with everybody else? Is he in first or second or third in the big categories, which in the case of the MVP in Major League Soccer are always goals and assists? And so that's where Lionel Messi comes into the picture, right? Because he has good numbers and he plays for the best team. Now, obviously, when we put up the either or Messi or Hernandez, the difference is how many games they have played. Cucho Hernandez has played 26 games. He hasn't played 34 or 33 going into decision day. He's played 26. He's got 19 goals and 13 assists on the season. Lionel Messi has played 18 games, just barely over half the season schedule so far. He's got 17 goals and 15 assists. So number-wise, you go, yeah, Lionel Messi's in this thing. Then you look at the games played, Robert, and I think that's where it gets a little complicated, because does Lionel Messi deserve to be MVP if he's only played 18 games, maybe 19 games as of tomorrow in Major League Soccer in 2024?
There's some also rans too on MLSsoccer.com. They've got kind of a top five of their guys. The midfielder for Portland Timbers, Evander, in
He's
fifth.
had a great season, but not an elite team. So again, not an elite team. Great season, not an elite team. Go ahead.
Luciano Acosta, FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, sure. And they are a very, very good team, but they're not what they were last year, right? So that, which is fascinating to me, that he's not getting more heat for this award when he has been almost as good as he was last year. But of course, the difference is Cincinnati's not in first place, right? They're not leading the way. There are two teams clearly better than them in the Eastern Conference, and you could argue maybe LA, and both LA teams are better than Cincinnati this season, which then brings Lucho Costa down the list of players who might be up for this award. And his impact, he's having the Carles Hill kind of season, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's assists are much more of his bread and butter than the goals. He's got 14 goals, but it's the 19 assists, which leads the league, that has him, that it really is the thing that you point to. And yet again, like you said, he's not, he's the third, fourth on that list.
Yeah, he came in fourth, and at third, averaging 1.3 goal contributions per 90 minutes without taking a single penalty. The remains of Luis Suarez.
Luis Suarez. Well, that's interesting. I mean, again, good season, great season. I mean, maybe more than what people expected. Remember when the season started, he looked broken. Luis Suarez. But he's managed to tape himself together. He's using, I don't know, he's got like MacGyvering his knee to get out there and play. 18 goals on the year, the goal contributions that you mentioned, 18 goals in 1,800 minutes. It's pretty good. And yeah, but he's going to split the vote.
He's capable of scoring goals in every which way. You can't nail like what's a Suarez goal. He can score any kind of goal, header, volley, on the run. And that's clearly not left him. And the team around him is good enough to where he can get into those positions without him being at, full health. Second on MLS.com's or MLSsoccer.com's list, Dennis Bwanga of LAFC.
Yeah, Denis Bwanga has had a very good year. LAFC is a factor in the Western Conference. 19 goals, 11 assists. Takes a ton of shots. 148 shots on the season. So 19 goals on 148 shots. Compare that to Luis Suarez, 18 goals on 66 shots for Luis Suarez. Much more efficient when he gets his opportunities. I don't think any of these guys are bad candidates. None of them are bad candidates. So you're at number 3, and we're going to get Cucho Hernandez at number 2 and Lionel Messi at number 1. Is that correct?
It's funny on there's an absentee name because we've already gotten to number 1 and they've listed Columbus Crew's Cucho Hernandez. There's no it's number 1. There's no Messi in their MVP power ranking list.
Okay, I'm be curious who wrote this. And good for them, right? Because again, they're probably thinking 18 games, you can't be MVP. But I still believe, and this is not about who I would pick. I would pick Cucho Hernandez. But I believe that Lionel Messi is going to win this award. I believe 100%. This is a popularity contest as much as it is anything else. It's a popularity contest as long as you can justify your vote. And lots of people are going to justify their vote for Lionel Messi because his numbers give him credibility in the race, even though, again, he hasn't played enough games for most people to really measure up. But at the same time, Robert, you mentioned Luis Suarez and his goal total without a penalty kick. How many times do we see a player win an award, win an MVP, something like that? Not a golden boot because that's about pure numbers and you don't discount penalty kicks. But how many times has a player won an MVP with a goal total that is inflated by 4 or 5 penalty kicks? And we don't say, some people might bring it up, but people don't go, oh, well, he can't win MVP. He had 5 penalty kicks. That's not what you have to be scoring from open play or from free kicks or something. That doesn't count. We don't do that. So I don't know. Where is the line on Lionel Messi's candidacy and where it would kick in? Is it 20 games? Is it 22 games? Is it 24 games? Cucho Hernandez playing 26 so far. Luis Suarez 26 appearances. So yeah.
It's all very subjective when you're doing these sort of awards. Connor Rivera has a funny comment. I think Messi winning the MVP is written into his Apple contract, which is it's just a humorous take and some rumblings on the internet that I've seen the last few days.
You say humorous? That's a conspiracy theory right there.
I've seen quite a few conspiracy theories talking about Lionel Messi being really protected in Inter Miami, getting some favoritism on calls. I have seen.
Sure. Well, that's a star factor. That's maybe an unconscious bias that referees bring to the table. I really don't know. I don't think you even need to tell referees protect Lionel Messi. I think Lionel Messi's referees are going to protect Lionel Messi because he's Lionel Messi, and it's just sort of natural for them to go, "Oh, that's the best player in the game." Yeah, if he says he got fouled, he probably got fouled. Right? That's just human nature. So I don't know if that goes that far. Now, as to Connor's crack about whether or not winning MVP is in Messi's contract, I don't think it is, clearly. But what I do think is Major League Soccer would 100% love to have Lionel Messi win MVP, Inter Miami win MLS Cup, Inter Miami go into the Club World Cup next year with Lionel Messi playing games for Inter Miami. Of course they want all those things. That's the marketing bonanza. That's how you show Apple, hey, look at what we're doing. That's how the numbers get boosted. And then you can point to them when Apple says, what are we doing? How are we doing, guys? What's our subscription numbers?
Have your say, guys. Hit us up on the X and the Instagram, Kickaround on the social medias. And if you want to write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Be sure to go to Morning Kickaround on YouTube and hit the darn subscribe button. We hit our first goal 200 and we want to keep it going and get a bit of an avalanche of followers here. We're going to take a quick breath and come back with the debut of our newest segment, American Soccer is Weird. American soccer can be quite weird. And this week we got a new installment. Boston's NWSL expansion franchise launches with their team name, Boss Nation FC. What do you think
Boss
of that name?
Nation FC. It's a terrible name. It is an atrocious name. It doesn't. I understand it's hard sometimes to figure out how to name an American soccer team because we do not know what we want, Robert. We are confused. Do we want our individual American culture to shine through, or do we want to be leaning on the history of the game mainly from European countries? We don't know. And obviously the trends in recent years have been to just default to European style names, right? Austin FC, St. Louis City SC, and then at least give St. Louis credit, by the way, for doing soccer club instead of football club. That has been the thing. It's always a football club. Really? Really? It's a football club? We're not going to even try with the soccer thing? Whatever. I know it's tough. So I don't know that I'm super angry about the Boss Nation part. I think the marketing campaign really missed, and that's a thing we're not going to cover in American Soccer is Weird today, but they really missed that. They've had to apologize.
It adds to the note of the weirdness, though, to apologize for your launch the next day after you launch.
It does. When you put your whole marketing campaign around the concept of balls and who has them and who doesn't, or that there's too many of them. You walked into a bear trap. You did that unto yourself, Boss Nation FC. Of course, I'll point out that they named it Boss Nation and then said, well, this is an anagram of Bostonian. But then I don't understand why you think that's some genius, clever thing when nobody, unless you flat out tell them to their face the second they see the name, they're never going to be like, oh, I see it. That's an anagram of Bostonian. And so, anyway, it's a terrible name. But they're not the first by any stretch of the imagination.
No, we're going to go through some historical weird team names. But before we break into that, there's been a lot of call for the Boston Breakers. What is a breaker?
A breaker is when the wave breaks. I believe it's a wave reference. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what that is.
All right, so we are going to go...
Or it's a video game from 1983, one of those things. Or the ones where you have to bounce the ball. Yeah, it's a brick breaker. There you go. Brick breaker. That's tough to say. Go ahead.
All right, American soccer history has quite a long list of weird soccer names, and some of them are still living and breathing as we speak. What would you say is the biggest current one? I would put forward Real Salt Lake.
Really? Wow. That's wow. Real Salt Lake is the worst American soccer name.
I wouldn't say it's the worst, but it is it looms large in the current Major League Soccer landscape, in my opinion.
Okay,
just because of the oddity of the connection to royalty of Spain, Salt Lake is the home of American Mormonism. I don't know if those connect.
I think Salt Lake is more than Mormonism, but yes, we know it for Mormonism, and I don't think they have any. There's not a king of the Mormons, right? They have a king?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, there's no King Mormon. That'd be amazing. No, they don't have one of those. Obviously, I remember when RSL launched, and there was this whole discussion about the name and the Real part, and why are you Real? What are you even doing? What is that? Obviously Real, it means royal. And it comes from the king bestowing the title on a club in England, Real Madrid, Real Betis. These are clubs that were just given this royal sanctioning by the king royalty. Or by the royal family. Yeah, Spanish royalty. So how on earth, as you said, does Salt Lake have any connection to that? I remember Dave Checketts, who was the founder of the club, the first owner, saying, well, Real Madrid said we could do it. And I was like, or we have a connection. Remember, this is the thing MLS teams, American soccer clubs have done for years. They're always like, oh, wait, we have a relationship. We're sister clubs with so-and-so European club. We've formed some bond, right? We did blood brother stuff or whatever it is. I don't know. We spit in each other's mouths, whatever it was to make this bond. And that's what Dave Checketts said. Real Madrid has given, it's once removed, royal sanctioning once removed. Real Salt Lake got their royal sanctioning from Real Madrid, who got their royal sanctioning from the king or something like that. Which, I also think what's interesting about Real Salt Lake, RSL, is first of all, you can say RSL and avoid the Real part. And second, over time, it becomes less bothersome. It becomes less annoying. I'm not saying it isn't annoying for people who really think about it, and I know there are people who are still up in arms about it. But I think for the most part, it just kind of becomes the wallpaper, and you're like, okay, well, that's just who they are. Think about this. Utah's got a history like this in another sport because they took a basketball team from New Orleans, where jazz was a major part of the culture, moved them to Utah, and kept the name Jazz when everybody was like, wait, what? How is that a thing? So it is kind of, it's actually Utah sports culture at this point to have weird names for your teams.
Another MLS team, not current, that raised some eyebrows and still does, Chivas USA, a team renamed for a Mexican team, Chivas de Guadalajara, but it was in California.
Yeah, picture the logo. I didn't put it up for us today, but Chivas USA was always a weird experiment. It wasn't, it was not just the name. It was also the minor league outpost vibe of it all.
Yeah.
Their owner was an absolute bleep show as well. So, it had all the, and of course, the end of it is one of the weirdest stories. Maybe we need to focus on the Chivas USA story.
That's a whole story in itself.
That might be an hour-long special episode. We might have to start up the Patreon or the get people to pay a little bit of cash, and we'll put together a whole mini documentary on Chivas USA because that was a ride.
Connection between Chivas and another team with unusual naming that's current at Las Vegas Lights. The coach Chelis,
yes,
going from Chivas and then later being the first coach of Las Vegas Lights, an unusual name. I'll never forget watching one of the first Lights games where Chelis gets a red card and ends up sitting in the stand smoking cigarettes with the fans.
Yeah, Chelis was a character. I think his son also coached that team for a minute, which was not great, but yeah, that the Las Vegas Lights is not the worst name though. I'm not putting that on our list. What else we got?
Out west, current team in the USL, the Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC, which is more than a mouthful.
Yeah, this team is based in an area that my family has roots in, so it's kind of like I feel this weird connection to them. They also had a manager I've interviewed a couple times on the radio, who I think is Irish. I think he's Irish. Maybe even played for Ireland at one point. It's not great, but it's more like it feels more like a minor league hockey team name, which doesn't offend me too much, Robert. Like, yeah, it's not great. Hailstorm is like, that transformer that your parents got that you didn't really want because you wanted Optimus Prime. Like, oh, I got Hailstorm? Damn it. Like, that's kind of where I am with Northern Colorado Hailstorm.
And also, there's a huge laundry list of these, but they have the nickname Hailstorm and the football club, and so the naming just becomes almost like a fragmented sentence rather than the name of a team. What are you going to say? Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC, go!
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, everything's got to have FC attached to it. So when we name our teams like they're American sports teams, like we always have, and then we're throwing FC on the end of it, it gets real unwieldy. It's real big and long and weird.
Another gold mine for unusual, weird, and maybe bad team names. The North American Soccer League, a era of naming all to its own. Late 70s and early 80s, NASL. My first pick. We could pick half the league for this.
We could,
this honestly, but
we could.
One of my favorites is the New England T-Men.
The New England T-Men. There's their logo. I don't know if they had more than one. I mean, as logos go, it's absolutely terrible. It's just how do you reproduce this? It's very involved with the ship, with all the sails. Obviously, T-Men is a reference to the Boston Tea Party, which, I'm all for folding in. Yeah, I'm all for folding history into our naming. Like, I felt like Austin could have done better than they did, just Austin FC. Like I a lot of teams that have popped up in Major League Soccer in recent years, I'm like, oh, dive into your history. I know Houston tried when they moved from San Jose and got shouted down because they picked a year to attach to the team, and then it was like, that's not the year. Like, that's a bad year. Lots of people got killed during that year. Maybe that's not inclusive. This one, though, yeah. And why does the specific NASL ball need to be involved there?
That
don't know.
ball is in about half of the badges
I know.
for that
I know.
league.
Well, see, this is the thing. I feel like NASL is almost cheating, as you said, Robert, because we could pick half the league. Do we have any other NASL ones? I think we do.
San
What else is-
Francisco Golden Gate Gales
Okay,
is
I
one
didn't.
on
I
the
didn't get a
list.
chance to put that logo in there. Golden Gate Gales is a tongue twister. That's wild. Who do you root for? The Golden Gate Gales? The what? And Gale is also not a word we're using unless you sail the boat on Nantucket Sound. Do you know what a gale is? Do you know what a gale is?
Only because I've lived in England and it blows a gale all the time, and it's
Oh,
a
yeah?
reference to it being windy in San
Right.
Francisco. A whale is a really intense short, like chop, just like intense gust.
Yeah, I know that just because I'm the kind of nerd who would know something like that. But and even spelling, like most people probably wouldn't know how to spell it. Like, how would you spell Gale? Like
Golden
Gail.
Gales.
That's my
Golden
mom's
Gales.
middle name. You know, Gale. That's what that is. They're the Golden Gales, like the Golden Girls. Awesome. Let's go.
Running down a couple others, there was a NASL team, the Caribous of Colorado.
Oh man, this is the best one. This is the best one for me. I think we got the logo for Caribous, for the Caribous of Colorado. It is a team. So what people either remember or have been told about the Caribous, see, that's the thing. They reversed it too. It's not the Colorado Caribous. It's the Caribous of Colorado, which is flipping the naming convention on its head. Then you've got the caribou with the ball, like
There's the
between its antlers. Wild. People remember this team because they had a fringe. They wore kits with the shirt had like a tassel fringe on it, which is the wildest thing anybody's ever done with a soccer uniform. I don't know what that color scheme is. Is that dirt and gold? Like, what is that color scheme, Robert?
I would say gold and brown. I'm a Western Michigan Bronco alumni, and that's their color scheme is brown and gold.
Oh, that's right. You guys have that same color scheme.
Yeah,
it works.
sadly.
It works. I guess it works if you do it right. But again, it's the name, right? We're talking about the name here. You named your team after this antlered animal, which already sounds weird, like caribous. Caribous sounds weird. It sounds like, it's a almost sounds like it's a nonsense word. Clearly you know what a caribou is, but when you say it's caribous, and then the of Colorado part, this was a miss. This was an absolute miss.
Yeah, NASL. There's also within there, I think it's even debatable, just like you getting used to something. The diplomats. Some people raise their eyebrows at that, but that's actually kind of fun.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just reach over here off camera. I wore this the other day on the show, right? This is the kind of weird throwback. It's a shirt. It's not a jersey. No, this isn't something any soccer player would actually wear because of the material. But it is, and this is, they put this out as almost like a throwback thing. But yeah, that's the Diplomats logo right there, which is a ball with a top hat, and there's a cane, and then there's the U.S. Capitol, just to let you know it's about D.C. Yeah, it's a pretty bad one too. There was also like a team in D.C. called the Whips. They were just doing bad soccer team names in D.C. back in the day.
Okay, so soccer, I'm going to call him borderline historian Josh Hackala sent me in a couple ones from way back in the day. Back in the 1915, there was a team called the Young Men's Total Abstinence Society Football Club.
I mean, that's one of those things that is of its time, right? When the teetotaling movement was fully underway, then you've got to have a team named after that. I'm not even sure. I understand that Josh sent that to you because that a team that played in the Open Cup or whatever, right? That's Josh's milieu. He knows Open Cup stuff. But I don't know that I feel like, yes, that's weird, but I think we kind of have to stick with teams that are either trying to market themselves, because I don't think that's what that team was trying to do, right?
No.
And then also, it doesn't have to be professional. I know we've got some teams that are not professional. In fact, I'm gonna grab control here because I want to you put this one up. What is this one? You put this one in our messages today. Thundercats Soccer Club.
And we're talking about names, and the name is fun, but the logo is also just a stitch too. This is a youth and an amateur club in eastern side of Michigan, north of Detroit a little
okay.
bit. I've commented on some of their youth state cup games, and they're good on the field, but Thundercats is just a whole thing.
I mean, so when I'm looking at this, okay, like, and again, I feel bad because I'm holding this amateur club, this youth club, up to a standard that we're really talking about professional team names. Like the Boss Nation is supposed to be a professional team in the top division of women's soccer in America. Like
Yeah, you think they had some marketing sessions,
right?
On that.
They hired a firm to find the name, and they landed on Boss Nation. That's what makes it so hilarious. But they came up with a terrible name despite using all this manpower and supposed expertise. Thundercats just are like, you remember that cartoon from the 80s? What if we named our soccer team after that cartoon? And then the ball is the way that the ball and the Thundercat interact is hilarious to me. I don't know what's supposed to. Is he eating the ball, but then it's too big to fit in his mouth? Are his teeth inside the ball, but we're still seeing them outside the ball? Obviously, the Thundercats font there at the I don't know. Again, it's probably not fair of me to judge them by the professional standard as opposed to New England T-Men, Real Salt Lake. Was this one, though, Robert, was this one supposed to be a professional soccer team? NJ Teamsters FC?
I believe this is a UPSL team, so
I see.
An amateur side.
Amateur
over there.
side as well, yeah. But, like,
Yeah.
do you think it's actually connected to the Teamsters Union? And why the Z? Why the Z? What is that about?
If I remember the press release, because I remember when this came out, I almost think that they did it to appeal to the youth. Hopefully, I'm not putting words in their mouth.
The Utes? The Utes?
The youth.
The Utes?
Because they use like hip stuff like Z's on their words.
Oh man, is that what we're doing though? I don't think Z's are a thing. I mean, I know it's Gen Z, but I'm pretty sure Gen Z was not like, hey, we like Z's on the end of our sports team names. And therefore, please do like that. That'll make us more interested. I know we did not pull the logo for another one, so this is in the same vein as the Teamsters for me. Do you remember the Las Vegas Mobsters?
I remember it as a concept, but I don't remember. Did it ever become a reality?
They were based in Vegas, founded in 2013. Now they play in the Nevada Premier League, which is an affiliate of Nisa Nation. So that's the big connection between clubs that Nisa tried to put together. The Las Vegas Mobsters. I think there was a thought about them kind of moving up, but they've been solidly amateur since they launched. But it just, again, apparently they're still going. They are playing games. They're not dead. They finished second in the Central Pacific Division, and they were in the semifinals of the playoffs in 2023. I mean, that's not that long ago. And you're saying let's name our soccer club something that's going to get people excited to come out, maybe join up, maybe play for us. Mobsters. Let's name them the Mobsters. It's like wow.
A big theme for these naming things, and it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't. There's the nicknames, and then there's also trying to emulate the foreign ones. But the indoor soccer league history kind of has their own right. Alliteration in indoor soccer teams is off the charts. Like we got the Baltimore Blast, the Harrisburg Heat. Kansas City Comets. And the list goes on with the alliteration of the indoor teams there. So quite a few different like formulas to a bad name.
As a military brat, I lived for a little while in Wichita, Kansas, and they had the Wichita Wings in Kansas. So that was another alliteration. Got to go with that. Now, what was the Dallas team? They were like the Sidekicks or something.
Yep,
the Dallas team.
Sidekicks still rocking.
Yeah.
Packing 6,000 fans in there.
How can you go wrong with San Diego Sockers? Yeah. It's like a double meaning thing there. Dayton Dynamo, says Jason. That's a good one as well. Yeah. Those aren't bad names. They're just very American minor league sports names is what they are. Like again, I mentioned minor league hockey. Minor league hockey has some pretty wild names too. They love that stuff. Minor league baseball. I mean, there was that period. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, Robert, where minor league baseball hats were like a fashion trend among a certain set of young American males. And so you went out and you got your Chattanooga Lookouts hat or whatever it was. And yeah, it's all in the same vein. I appreciate the effort, though. American soccer.
One of the
Good
speaking
job.
of which, speaking of hats, I did get an odd gift. There was a brief period where fitted hats were a thing for me, and I got a gift of a hat, the Atlanta Black Crackers, which was
Oh,
an interesting team name for
I'm
for any
not
kind
sure I
of.
want to go down that road right now with
No,
you,
no,
Robert.
no. So there has been a long list, and just one more before we go. This is also Josh Hackla connected. Current powerhouse in the USL2, the Ocean City Nor'easters.
Oh yeah, I mean, nor'easter is a storm, right? Isn't that a
Yeah,
storm?
yeah, that's like one of those East Coast storms.
Yes, we have them in the East Coast. We have nor'easters. I think they're more up north from where I am. But yeah, Ocean City, New Jersey, is that
I
team? It
believe
must be
so.
Ocean City, New Jersey. There's also an Ocean City, Maryland. So I want to make sure I have my Ocean Cities right. Okay.
And then another one from way back in the 20s, Indiana Flooring Company, FC.
Well, you had teams attached to companies, right? Isn't that what
That's what it's
Beth-
all about, yeah, really. It just
Bethlehem
sounds funny
Steel?
now in its context.
Right, Bethlehem Steel was a business. I mean, that was like, oh, there's a Bethlehem Steel company. Let's have a soccer team. All right, Bethlehem Steel's our soccer team. Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, Connor's had some fire comments today. Europe doesn't get to just put out young boys and not get thrown into this conversation.
Well,
That's a
okay.
whole nother can of
We
worms. There's a
can't
whole lot of other
look.
ones.
We're already overtime today. We're already in an extra time today, and I was gonna say, like, go look at the Bolivian first division right now, and tell me some of those aren't like wow. And we're not. The thing about the Bolivian first division is that those team names are in English for some reason that I don't think I've ever really looked into. Like, why is there a team called Always Ready in Bolivia? Why is there a team called The Strongest
Oh, I like
in
that. I
Bolivia?
like that.
Yeah, those.
What's a more like alpha type name? Bethlehem Steel or the
I
Strongest?
mean, this it's really hard to mess. The Strongest is just that is an interesting one. Why? Since we're here and we're just having fun, why don't I give you some of the Bolivian first division names? So yeah, Bolivar is in first place. That makes sense. Bolivar, Bolivia. Simon Bolivar, founder of the country. The Strongest. You have Blooming. Maybe that's just a place. I don't know. You have a team called Jorge Wilstermann, which I think is some dude's name, probably the founder of the club, very important person. Always Ready, I mentioned. And I think that's about as far as it goes with weird ones. But that's just a couple. And then again, mentioning some young boys over there in Switzerland. Is that where that is?
Yeah, that's a Swiss team. And when they were in the Champions League, they had I think they played Barcelona or something, and so they were on all the talk. They were named on all the talk shows, and no one can help themselves from making a young boys
Got to
pun.
make a joke.
Gotta make.
Gotta make a joke.
So I'll come full circle, come back to the women's game for our last name drop. Coming back to New Jersey, the New Jersey Lady Stallions.
I mean, what's wrong with that, Robert? I fail to see the weirdness. They're ladies and they're stallions. They can be both things. That's not an oxymoron at all. Stallions who are also ladies.
I guess that would seem even weirder if we were before the Megan the Stallion era.
Yeah,
It would be a
Megan
little
the
odder.
Stallion. She did choose.
She flipped the script on the Stallion nomenclature.
Yeah, she wasn't like, I got to stay with women horses or girl horses. I can be a boy horse. I'm fierce. I can be a boy. Soccer players can be boy horses, even as they're also ladies.
Another
American
shout out
soccer's
on the chat is Blue Goose SC in the PDL.
Yeah,
And obviously we can do this forever. So if you have some unusual soccer team names from America or across the globe, but we've been focusing on American soccer. If you've got a weird American soccer club name, send us in at morningkickaround@gmail.com or online on social media at Kickaround on X and Instagram. Clearly, we've got more than enough material. And I think we've even got a bunch of splinter segments for deep dives in their own right in some of these teams and leagues along the way. So lots of soccer. We are well over time. It seems like we've had some fun this morning. Hit us up, like and subscribe. Keep this party rolling. Help us expand and grow, because more the merrier, and the better it'll get, the bigger it gets.
Yeah, tell people about the show. That's the most important way that you can help us out, is just to tell somebody you know, so a soccer fan, maybe you're going out to a game this weekend, have a conversation. Hey, have you heard about Morning Kickaround? Jason Davis, Robert Kerr, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would also say, American soccer is weird is a place we want to go to a lot on this show.
Yes.
This is why I love our game in this country, because it is weird and it's ours and it's special. So if you have an idea, not just a team name that's weird, but like a story from American soccer that you think is weird, please send us a message by some means so we can incorporate it down the line.
We got some grassroots effort. I would be remiss if I don't shout out Kirk Mills for making a poster for the Morning Kickaround and hanging up around the youth soccer fields of Kalamazoo, Michigan. So shout out to Kirk for spreading the word.
Nice one
out there. Very cool. So if you want more of the world's game covered from the world's favorite country, this is the spot. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you on Monday at 9:30.